Welcome, fam. Welcome to Anchor Daily Show with your host, Nate Mlambo. We're back again with another exciting episode. Ketogenic diet for weight management. And today is our favorite day, Nutrition Tuesday. Nutrition Tuesday, so we're talking about food. And before we get in, we are going to discuss a few things about keto. I'll tell you what exactly we're covering. First thing we're going to cover today is why the ketogenic diet became one of the world's most popular diets. We're going to cover the three biggest mistakes people make when going on keto. We're going to cover the truth about fat loss on a ketogenic diet. We're going to talk about the NATO-8 framework for choosing the right diet and who should choose and shouldn't choose or consider keto. And the most important that you don't want to miss is the 5 ways to lose weight without following diet trends. Because we all know it's a trap. It's a trap. So, the first thing that we want to look at today is why the ketogenic became one of the world's most powerful diets. So let me share my screen with you and we can walk through this together. And you can see what we'll be looking at. Perfect. So we are looking at our slides for today. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at is our scripture. Like, where are we basing everything from, right? Because I think one of the things that we need to do is still ground everything that we do in scripture to really see how how the biblical principles align with this. Because one of the most important things that we need to understand is when we approach diet, we have to approach it with wisdom. And one of the best places to approach it with wisdom is through our text or biblical text. So in Proverbs, it tells us that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So this is simply just to put this in a way that we can all understand is that it's important for us to take caution when we hear information or when we're attempting to do something and to approach with actual wisdom and to consult with people to find out, okay, what is actually going on? Because in a world that we live in with social media, it's very easy to get carried away without necessarily researching or fact checking to see, like, okay, is this information true? Or is this information what I need personally at a particular time? So, the first thing that we want to look at today is just what we're covering. So, we already talked about what we're covering. So, again, our roadmap today is that we're covering the reasons why keto became so popular, the three biggest mistakes, right? So, we talked about that. So, we're going to jump into why keto became popular and then circle back as we go along with our agenda for today's show. So one of the things that we need to understand is like, okay, so why and how did keto become popular? Because you have people that tell you some incredible stories about why and how they lost weight on keto. So it's not something that's new to a lot of us because we know that a lot of people have indeed, in fact, reversed type 2 diabetes or reduced their blood pressure and they've fixed their guts for whatever reason, that they were having issues, and this was because of a ketogenic diet. And even like when they did their blood work, it seemed to have shown great results. And then you also have another group of people that say, hey, like, I cannot go for hours without eating carbs. I need my pasta, I need my rice, I need to eat something. Otherwise, I get hangry, and it's not going to be a pleasant day for everyone around me. So that's important to understand that, okay, there are people who relapse, they go on a keto, they do well for a couple weeks, and then they relapse. Maybe they lose the initial amount of weight, and then boom, back up again, just because they felt like they were starving themselves. So there are a lot of different stories that you hear when it comes to ketogenic diets. And one of the most important thing that we need to do is to answer a couple questions before we consider if a ketogenic diet is the right diet for you or not. So most likely, both of them are correct in what I've seen and how I've approached this, and I'll tell you why in a moment, why both sides are true and correct. Because one of the things that we need to understand is approach this with discernment. So one of the things that happens in the fitness industry is that there is hype, and there is a lot of trending topics that trend in the industry, and certain ideas that maybe some people are testing, and they're trying to get attention, to get people to maybe criticize or evaluate and that sort of thing. So it's kind of like news, right? So news comes, something viral comes up, okay, boom, it goes away. So it gets viral. So the same thing with diets when it comes to like fitness and health. You have these trends that are viral because maybe an influencer, maybe like Oprah, loses weight, and she loses weight because she tried the ketogenic diet. And then she broadcasts on a show. All of a sudden, hundreds of millions of people are now like, hey, like, I want to get on a ketogenic diet because I saw my favorite TV show host losing so much weight. And same thing happens these days. Like, you have different influences, like, let's say Joe Rogan, you have other health influencers, Greg Doucette, you have Athlean X, you have Huberman, you have Dr. Patrick, Rhonda Patrick, and you have these influencers who have great information, but sometimes they also, I mean, not sometimes, but everyone is not immune to trends, because the trends just kind of catch you off guard, and you just kind of ride it out, and you test it, you try it. And as someone who's just interested in like health, fitness, everyone is going to try it. So at the end of the day, you'll see that in the industry, or like within fitness, within health, there's been a low fat diet trend. There's been like a low carb diet trend. There's been a carnivore diet trend, right? And keto is another diet trend. And so, and then fasting, that's another diet trend. So what you find is that there's no particular diet that can outlive or outlast any other diet. But what I'll say is keto, for what it's worth, it does have some good, solid evidence that it does work. But it only works for a particular group of people, because it does something very specific in the body. So those people that need a ketogenic diet, it will work for them. Obviously, this is not health advice. Talk to your doctor to get medical advice, or health professional. But we need to understand that every method just has its own followers, people that are going to be swearing by it, right? And the best diet is going to be what's best for you specifically. So it's not about the trends, right? So that's the thing that we need to understand as well. It's not about the trends. And now we want to cover the three biggest mistakes that people make when they get on a ketogenic diet. So the first thing that they believe, again, when they get on a ketogenic diet, is that they believe that ketosis, because people just, throw the word ketosis. a lot. They say, hey, you have to be in a ketogenic diet to lose weight. And to burn fat, you have to be in ketosis. But that's also a lie. You don't have to be in ketosis to lose weight. It's not like that's the requirement for everyone. It's just a state, it's just a different way that the body can function, but it doesn't mean that's the only way. And the other thing is when they say, like, okay, you have to lose weight, which means that with ketosis, let's just, for someone who's new, who doesn't know what ketosis is, but it's a diet where you remove your carbs. You don't eat a certain amount of carbs, but you eat a lot of fat and a lot of protein. That is a ketogenic diet. So with the ketogenic diet, when you're eating a lot of protein and a lot of fat, you're depending on the fat source being the fuel that you use in your body. And most times, your body naturally uses, how it's designed is to use carbs as the energy source. So when your body stops using carbs as an energy source, you deprive it of the carbs as an energy source, your body triggers another system to get its energy. And when you remove the energy source of carbs and you feed the body more fat, it's like you're feeding it more fat and you're signaling to your body that, hey, we don't have carbs, but we've got plenty fat. So you start helping your bodies to start digesting and breaking down your fat to become the energy source. And hence, some people end up burning fat. So that's essentially what ketosis is. So people believe, some people, if you're the one of the people, if you believe that ketosis is the only way that you need to lose weight, that is not correct. That is wrong. And if you believe that carbs are bad for you, that is also wrong. And if you believe that you can't lose weight without carbs, that is also wrong. So those are the things that people sometimes they make that big mistake. That is one of the most important mistakes that people need to actually relearn and undo, because if they keep on doing that, they put themselves in a tough place and they restrict themselves. They can't even go out to eat food with friends because they're like, no, I can't eat carbs. They can't even enjoy a treat because they're like, no, I can't eat carbs. So some things become something that they can't eat or can't touch, and they become too restrictive in some ways. So that's something that we need to understand. And so that is one of the things that, if you believe that, you're believing a lie. I hate to break it to you, but you're believing a lie. And the other thing that people believe when they get on keto, they believe that it's because of their lack of discipline, why they failed on a keto diet, or they're too weak and they couldn't stay in ketosis. Because ketosis, excuse me, because ketosis for some people, they have to, for some people, they test and they tell you, hey, you have to get the strips to test if you're in ketosis. Do you have ketones in your urine sample or blood sample? So when people try mm, track every single moment or every couple hours to see if they're in ketosis, because you also can't be eating carbs within a certain time period. If you do eat carbs, you're going to get out of ketosis. So you have to constantly monitor. So a lot of people, right? You might think that, hey, I'm out of ketosis. I'm not in ketosis. So when you start thinking that it's because of your lack of discipline and you yourself, you're weak, you're also lying to yourself. Because I'll tell you something that will really reveal what is going on. So you have to realize that ketosis itself as a diet is not the diet for you. And the other thing that people make a mistake on, the third mistake that people make, is that they think that diets work for everyone else, but not for me. And for me, meaning you might say that, hey, this ketosis diet only works for athletes. It only works for someone who is a teenager, or it works for only the guys, or it works for a particular group of people. But with my schedule, with my responsibilities and my goals, I can never make ketogenic diet work. You might think that. And I hate to break it down to you, but you're also wrong. You're also wrong on that. Because if you really are the person who should be on a ketogenic diet, it will work for you, regardless of your schedule, because it will instantly show you that this is what you're missing. Because some people that are on a ketogenic diet, sorry, I'm saying ketosis, but in ketosis, but on a ketogenic diet, they report to have mental clarity like never before. So when you have mental clarity like never before, and you're sharper, you've got more energy, you will realize that, okay, this is the diet that I should be on. Because a lot of us are looking for more energy in our lives. So when you tell yourself that, hey, this diet is not my diet, you will know. You don't have to guess it. You will know instantly if ketosis is your diet that you should be on. So that is the third lie that people tell themselves. Now, what we want to do is actually understand, okay, so ketosis itself, what is the truth about fat loss on a ketogenic diet? Because if we miss this, this is how you evaluate to see, okay, is the ketogenic diet the diet for me? Is it for me? So how do you actually understand if a ketogenic is the one for you? Because the first thing that we need to understand is that keto as a diet, or any diet itself, is a tool. It's a tool for us to use. And what matters more is when you're on ketosis, you're going to have to track your food to know if you're in ketosis or not. So you're going to build a skill to track, a skill to know if you're eating enough carbs, to know if you're eating enough fats, to know if you're limiting your carbs as much as you need to. So you're going to learn that. And if you combine your diet, a proper diet, with the training, you're going to see that the results that you get are going to be great. But it stops being a tool when you start abusing the diet and think that you have to depend on a ketogenic diet. And you think that you can't do other things, and you now live a life where you're restricted. So it's important to just understand that, hey, this is a tool. And for you to use that tool, you have to use it within that system, right? It cannot be the one thing that gets you there. So you have to use it in combination with other things. That's how you make a ketogenic diet work, because on its own, it won't help you. And it's going to force you to actually start meal prepping. And it's going to allow you to actually start reading labels, because now you know, okay, this food has carbs. Okay, this food has this amount of fat. And this food has this amount of protein. So now when you know all of those things, it's going to be easier for you to actually start tracking and losing weight, because now you know, now you're getting more knowledge about diet and nutrition. So on its own, it's not the complete picture. It's not the thing that's going to get you the results that you're looking for. But if you actually think that, okay, maybe what I can do is actually change something and learn something from this. So the other thing is that we have to understand that ketogenic diet is something that we have to implement in a way that it's sustainable. Because a lot of people, they start the ketogenic diet and then they start losing weight initially, but then they cannot sustain the weight loss and they get tired. And if you've watched one of the other streams that I've had before, like I've talked about how when you're eating carbs, your carbs hold a lot of water weight. So when someone's getting on a ketogenic diet for the first time, they're likely going to dump a bunch of water weight. So the first amount of weight or first amount of pounds that someone drops are not necessarily going to be fat that is burnt, but it's just the water weight that your body just lets go off. So when your body lets go off it, you're going to see a difference in the scale. The scale is going to move, the needle is going to move, and you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I got it. So when the needle moves and you're like, okay, I'm losing weight, and then you hit a plateau, or you think that you hit a plateau. Some people get discouraged and they're not able to keep it going. And they just say, hey, I'm stopping right here because I can't keep going. So you have to learn to keep on coming back and doing the same thing for a month, for 2 months, for a year. For a lot of people, it's hard to go for a year because going for a year, being restrictive, can be very hard. It can be very hard for a lot of people because you can have different events with different friends throughout that entire period. And it might be hard for you to come for a like a celebration, a birthday, Christmas, or some sort of like celebration, could be anything, and you give up on the cake, you give up on the carbs. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be tempting. It's going to be trying, but it's going to be very hard. It's kind of like fasting at that point because you're just fasting from carbs for an entire year. So it's important to understand that, okay, ketogenic diets are a tool, and we have to ask ourselves, like, okay, is this something that I can live with? That's how you know if a ketogenic diet is a one for you. You have to think about this. You have to think about it and not necessarily blame yourself. Because sometimes people just get on a ketogenic diet, they stumble, they fail, and then realize that, hey, nah, I don't want to do this. And then they start hating that diet because they're like, nah, this is not the diet for me. It doesn't work. And they say bad things about it. But it's not necessarily the diet that failed or you failed per se, but it's just that you didn't think it through. You didn't ask yourself that question. Can I live with this? So, very important thing for us to understand and make sure that we know. And the other thing when it comes to ketosis, one of the most important things that we have to ask ourselves, because there is this trend with people, this was happening a lot back in 2016, 2017, there was this trend of if it fits my macros. So there's this idea when it comes to if it fits my macros, which macros, it's like your protein, fat, carbs, those three things. So when you're setting up your diet or your meals, typically you would set your calories. From your calories, you calculate, okay, how much protein do I need to add? And then from there, you calculate, okay, how much carbs, how much fat in your diet. So you have the big three macronutrients. So if it fits your macros, people said, okay, it doesn't matter what I eat, even if I eat McDonald's, but as long as McDonald's fits my macros, it doesn't matter. So a lot of people also brought that mentality to ketogenic diet. And they're like, okay, I could eat a bunch of fatty food and just protein, and I'll be on a ketogenic diet. So like processed meat, right? Butter overloaded, like snacks. There's some keto snacks that you'll find, and low vegetables. And then that way I'll hit my macro goal. So this is like plate A, right? For example. And then you have plate B. There is also like an option to go with the whole foods like the fish, eggs, avocado, olive oil, nuts, and seeds, and no starchy vegetables. So those two diets or those two meals, they could still hit the same macros. You could hit the same protein, you could hit the same carbs, you could hit the same fat goal, but the quality is different because now you're restricting yourself from carbs. When you restrict yourself from carbs, you're also missing out on some of the important micronutrients that you can find in some whole food carb sources that are dense, like the fiber that you find, some of the antioxidants that you might find. So when people just eat anything and say, hey, if it fits my macros, yeah, I can work to a degree, but it's not going to work to the degree that you possibly can. It's not good for your health. Let's put it that way. It's not good for your overall health. You might look good, but it might not be the way that you're going to go, because it's kind of like looking at a bodybuilder. Looks shredded, they look lean, but they have a bunch of pharmaceuticals inside of them. They're taking a bunch of PEDs. So when they're taking a bunch of PEDs and they look good, it doesn't mean that they're healthy. Their organs might not be working well. So it's the same idea when it comes to like plate A and plate B. You have to make sure that plate A and plate B are hitting your macros, but also providing you with good micronutrients. They're also acting as good micronutrient sources. So that's one of the things that we need to understand. So the details themselves, they change the result. Because someone will be like, okay, well, why am I not in ketosis? Because one of the most important things is actually shopping for foods that don't need food labels, that don't have multiple ingredients. Because if you have to like read the different ingredients, you have 20,000 ingredients labeled, then you're probably eating the wrong food. So you have to try and pick the food sources that don't have as many ingredients. And so, like, if it's fish, gotta be fish, just fish. You don't need nothing else. If it's eggs, it's eggs. If it's avo, it's avo. If it's oil, it's oil. If it's seeds, it's seeds. Right? So if it's veggies, it's just the veggies. You don't have anything else. You're not thinking, okay, did they put dextrose and amylase, maltase, fructose, dextrose, all of those things. You don't have to think about that. So that is one of the most important things to actually think about. And the other thing is, are carbs really the problem? Because a lot of people have demonized carbs and they've said, no, no carbs. I'm not eating carbs. If I eat carbs, I put on a bunch of weight. The idea behind carbs making people gain weight is because people eat the carbs, too many carbs. They overindulge in the carbs because maybe they're eating too many sugary carbs, maybe baked goods and things that are add additional things that are added to the carbs. If you're adding some oil to the carbs, that could add the extra calories. So if you're not being conscious about the things that you're adding to your carbs, but if you eat your carbs, there's certain carbs that are like nutrient dense that actually fill you. They have fiber. Those are good carb sources. So if you're eating your whole grain foods, those are good. Like even bread, like some of the breads that people eat have a ton of ingredients. But you should just have like what, flour, some oil, some water, milk, just the basic ingredients, maybe yeast, basic ingredients, make your bread, boom, you got your dough, put it in the oven, boom, let it rise. And that's all you need. So the places that you get your carbs are also important, the places that you shop. But the main thing that we need to understand is that the carbs themselves are not necessarily the enemy, but it's the sources of carbs that you eat. So the best option that you can look at is whole foods, because if you opt for like sugary drinks, chips, candy, pastries, ultra processed snacks, it's not going to work out. You're going to gain weight. And the problem is a lot of people now blame carbs. They're like, no, carbs are a problem. I'll gain weight if I eat carbs. And which I would challenge anyone to say, hey, eat whole foods, eat potatoes, eat fruits, eat beans, oats, vegetables, because the amount of calories that you'd eat for you to gain weight compared to like a bar of candy, you might eat like 4 or 5 bars of candy. For you to eat the same amount of calories that you'd eat in those candy bars is probably eating a whole bag of maybe potatoes. So the volume also matters. Like if you eat food that actually fills your stomach, which means the volume, right? How much it fills you up versus the amount of calories. So you can eat high volume, low calorie. That's what you want to target when it comes to like fullness, right? So if you're eating something like a candy, that thing is like dissolving by the time it hits your stomach, right? It's just all just sweetness. It's just sweets that just dissolves into your bloodstream. So it's not really settling in your stomach that it can sustain you. And it's not being digested the way that it should. It's not a carb source, it's just a sugar, right? That just gives you a spike of energy, but it's not the same thing. So they might fit the same category, different effect, and the context is different. Those are treats. That is cheat meal kind of food. That is what you're eating for a cheat meal. And the next thing that we're looking at here is also just to understand, like, okay, what is the actual context for this? Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, give me a second here. Just gotta make sure that we're still on. Okay, I am the presenter and I'm the tech right now. So so let's go. Let's keep moving. Okay, so gotcha. So now we're here. So now as we're looking at this, right, we want to understand like, okay, so the framework that we want to use when we're picking food is to understand that, okay, so how do I pick food or pick a diet that allows me to eat food that I enjoy. For starters, it's like, okay, food that you enjoy, whole foods, by the way, whole foods that you enjoy, and also to make it sustainable and for you to lose weight. Because at the end of the day, what you need is a diet that you can stick with. That is part of it. That is like the habit formation, the things that you shop for, the groceries, your cooking utensils. Do you have the cooking utensils for your favorite food so that you can make the recipes that you enjoy? So those are important things that you have to put into consideration because sometimes you have these great, amazing ideas of the types of foods that we can eat, where you make this grand plan to say, hey, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to meal prep, I'm going to do this, but you don't even have the meal prep containers. So be realistic. How many times can you meal prep? Do you have the things that you can use to meal prep? Do you have the measuring cups? Do you have the scale, for example? So those are the things that you need to have in your house. So you want to build the habits. You want to build the environment for you to be able to eat the food that you enjoy. That is what makes it easier. So when you're now picking your food that you eat, your diet, you want to prioritize protein. That is the one thing that I like about the keto diet. It also prioritizes protein. So protein is very important for your muscle density, muscle formation, muscle synthesis, protein synthesis, muscle development, and also for you to look fit, to make sure that your skin looks good. It also helps with repairing different tissues in your body. So it's important for you to have enough protein. So that's the one thing that I like about the keto diet. And for most of the healthy keto diets, they help you understand, like, okay, what are the healthy fat sources? Because sometimes people eat fats blindly. So it actually brings people's awareness to the types of fats that they eat. So that's the other thing that I like about keto. And the one thing that we need to understand is that when it comes to eating food for ourselves, is that we need to first prioritize protein and also whole foods. So the whole foods, which falls into the types of fats like avocado oil, the extra virgin oil, the coconut oil. So those are different types of healthy fats, and also like things like eggs being additional things that you can add to your diet. So it's really allowing people to eat healthy and to pick better choices. So in terms of like learning the discipline that comes with it, I see that as a good thing because it brings awareness. Not because you have to be restrictive, but just the awareness that it brings. Because you actually have to track your food for you to say that I'm on a ketogenic diet. So you have to. So those things are good, right? Things like fish, whole foods, things that are like really food that don't have a ton of ingredients. Those are good things. So those are the things that we have to make sure that we prioritize. And then the next thing is that we need to make sure that the carbs that we eat also matched to your lifestyle, because carbs are not your enemy. Remember that. Always remember that. Carbs are not your enemy. Your body requires carbs to actually function. Your brain requires carbs to actually function. So you need that energy source, because when you have a easy, accessible energy source for your body, it just knows exactly how to burn the carbs. So it's not necessarily going to be making you gain weight. Unless if you eat excess, or if you eat sugary drinks, things that have a ton of sugars, because sugars can qualify as carbs. So we have to understand that. But if you're eating whole foods, eating whole carb foods, food sources, that's a great thing that you can do for yourself. And then the other thing that you want to make sure is that you're doing is that you're writing what you're eating, tracking the foods that you enjoy, whether it's like in your food app, whether it's like MyFitnessPal. There's another video for MyFitnessPal. Go check it out on how to set up your MyFitnessPal and even design your own custom meals. You can go check out that video. And so being able to do this and repeat it on a daily basis, it brings awareness to you. You understand what you enjoy. And the most important thing that you need to understand is that you need to actually realize that when it comes to health and fitness in the industry itself, it's not about chasing the trends, because right now there's trends about peptides, GLP-1s, and the goal is to build a sustainable life where you can repeat something over and over again for a lifetime. And that is longevity. Instead of going for the trends, because some of the trends you can't keep up, and the side effects that these peptides and GLP-1s will have on people in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. I mean, maybe 1 year's passed, but like 5, 10 years is going to be enormous. Like people are not going to know like what hit them, because the trends come and go, right? I've seen all of these trends. They come, they go. So if you're someone who just falls for trends and who says, okay, I'm going to get on this diet because I need to get on this diet, because it's a trend, because your friend told you, because your favorite podcaster told you, don't just get on it because it's a trend. There's some good aspects to it, but realize that a ketogenic diet is a prescriptive diet. So ketogenic diets are prescriptive. There's no diet for everyone. Not every diet works for everyone. And if you think, or if you have a health condition, consult with a health professional, because there's also studies that ketogenic diets do help with weight management for people with type 2 diabetes. It also helps with people with high blood pressure. It also helps for removing mental fog. It provides people with more clarity mentally, and also with more energy. Naturally, when you start losing weight, when you can actually tap into fat stores, because fats actually hold more energy than carbs. And it depends on your body, how your body responds to a ketogenic diet. And depending on what condition that the ketogenic diet is treating. So it's a prescriptive diet that treats specific conditions. And so you should talk to a health professional. If you're someone who's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to experiment. I like the sounds of it. I'm just going to try it. You're going to do it at your own will, at your own risk. And I do think that a ketogenic diet can be worthwhile to test. But a lot of people also tend to think that they're in ketosis when they're not. So ketogenic diet might require you to like invest in the strips so that you can test to see if you're in ketosis. Well, I think there's a machine by now. I don't know if there's anything else that you can use to measure the ketones that you have. So it's important to realize that whatever you do, you're doing it with awareness to understand what is going on. Don't just go into something blindly. Focus on building better habits instead of just chasing trends. And same thing now with peptides, GLP-1s. Don't focus on chasing trends. Focus on actually building habits that matter and realizing that a diet on its own is just a tool. but you need the complete system that fits inside. I mean, the tool needs to fit inside the system. That's what I say. That's what I mean. Yeah. So the tool needs to fit inside the system, which means it's the same thing again that I was saying. It's about forming the habits. You're forming your habits, habit formation, and you're creating and forming healthy habits for yourself. And as you repeat and do it over and over and over and over again, you stop thinking about it. It stops being work. You become an expert. You start telling people and teaching people, like, hey, you know what? I tried this, and guess what I found out? I found out if you eat this food and this food, you can be in ketosis within 2, 3 hours. Or if you fast for 2 days before you get into a ketogenic diet, then you're going to be in ketosis faster. So there are things that people can test and try and do stuff, but do it with medical supervision. If you're someone who's just stumbling upon this, you're new to like fitness, you're new to nutrition, do it with guidance and with someone who's a professional. Personally, I'm a coach, I'm a fitness coach. I have diet plans, I do coaching. So you can click links, you can find links in my bio, you can click, find fitness programs, you can find diet plans, you can find my coaching link, you can apply for coaching. I can have a call with you, discuss where you are, what you're trying to do, and that's about it. So, I hope you enjoy this and I hope you found this very valuable. And if you are considering trying ketogenic diet, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you've tried other diets, if there's a diet that you've actually found that it's actually worked for you and you think that this is something that you want us to like look into or you want me to like talk about to give you some insights, what I think about it, let me know as well. And I'll be very happy and glad to make a video about it and give you some feedback. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow we won't be online. It's gonna be a day off tomorrow. So it's a holiday, so we're gonna take the day off tomorrow. But we'll be back on Thursday.